It's me, Mario!
This is a big one today, guys. This is long coming. Alicia and I have been talking about the Mario Kart attraction at Super Nintendo World for a while now. And we have finally seen inside. So first of all, welcome to Shark Stop, another episode of the Theme Park Shark podcast, joined with Alicia Stella.
Hello. I think as long as I've known you, we've been talking about Mario Kart.
Yes, this has definitely been our point of emphasis. This has been our favorite conversation, I feel like. And even more interesting, and I won't give too many clues just yet as far as where this episode is probably going to go, but even more interesting is the fact that you and I seem to be relatively divided on our first thoughts. So I think that's really fun. But yeah, I just want to start this episode off. I don't know how many of you guys have gone and seen the point of view, but if you haven't, there's definitely going to be some spoilers in here, as Alicia and I are going to refer to a lot of things in the attraction. So if that's not for you, time to click out. But if you're ready to dive in and start talking about this point of view with us, stick around, because we're basically going to start at the top. We're going to act like we're going on this attraction. We're going to go through the queue. We're going to go on the ride, and we're going to give our thoughts along with you guys through the process. So quick overview, Alicia. Just, you can give me your 2 cents. What did you think of the queue?
Well, we had seen a little bit of photos and videos trickle out over the last few weeks before the embargo actually lifted from Universal Studios Japan. So the queue is interesting in that it's massive. It's obvious that they were planning on having 3-hour waits for this attraction. And that's good in COVID era, because now there's actually space to separate parties by 6 feet. I love the idea that it's Bowser's Castle, and as you're waiting, you get to see like bad guys and bombs and things being produced. Yeah. And there's piles, like he's got stockpiles of all the weapons he's going to use against you. There's that really cute model on the table of the course, because the story of the attraction is that Bowser's designing this course to try to, beat Team Mario.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at that right now in the point of view that I'm watching. And it's incredible to kind of get that inside look almost into the mind of Bowser and how Universal decided to play it. It's a little daunting, but it's still like super cute at the same time. So it's a weird line that they're kind of walking with it.
Yeah, it's like family-friendly danger. I love that he's got books on his shelves that's like how to take sibling rivalry and use it to your advantage.
Right.
He's trying to make his kids, his Koopalings, evil, and it's perfect. There's tons of hidden Easter eggs. Like I've already, some people have pointed out, there's like Luigi's Mansion, I don't know what it's called. The ghost sucker-upper backpack is sitting in the queue.
Right.
Mario Maker's tool belt in a toolbox is sitting somewhere. Like, there's tons of little things that, like, if you know me, that's like my favorite thing, is finding the little hidden things that I think fans are going to get a kick out of.
There's a lot of hidden Easter eggs. There's just a lot of just cool things, too, that are actually blatantly in your face. Like just having, the booze flying around in the little holes of the bookshelf and things like that. Like, there's a lot of really cool and interesting tidbits to this queue. But if we want to zoom out for a second and just take an overall look, if you want to even tackle it, what kind of grade would you give on this queue based upon other attractions now that Universal has done in some of the queues that we've seen? Where is this lining up for you?
It's hard to tell from the POVs, because I think early on there was some complaints that it's big and empty or whatever, but looking at the newer ones, it's pretty obvious that even like the bigger rooms are still incredibly well themed around the edges. So I'd give it around a B out of all of the, if you're going to put like Forbidden Journey as an A, as like making you feel like you're in something we've seen before. This isn't necessarily a full setting that we've seen before. Like the entryway is definitely reminiscent of Bowser's Castle as seen in different places or on Mario Kart games. But then they've kind of made up their own rooms and things. So I'd say it's around a B, maybe a B+. I don't know. I have to walk through it myself, but there's definitely a never-ending supply of fun stuff to spot.
That's a long-standing conversation, even going back to Galaxy's Edge, is this massive creation of something that we don't immediately recognize. Do you think that hurts the queue in this sense, or it's just a part of, it comes with the territory at this point?
I think towards the end of the queue, it's really neat that it kind of shifts gears for a little bit, and it like does the MKTV type thing. It has like a news van, and you see the TV monitors with Mii's on them teaching you how to actually, play on the ride. And like it does enough to mix it up, and it has all the different cups from the races is something I recognize from the game. So there's some stuff that I think, and the giant Bowser statue is amazing, and the exterior is amazing. So I think it's a good mix. of things I recognize from the different series, and then also a little bit of new refreshing stuff.
How cute are those little Miis too, that they incorporated that into like the instructional video of this ride? I think that was so clever.
It's so smart. You don't even need to have a language barrier problem.
Right.
You can watch this without, there's no talking or anything, and you go, oh, now I know how to do it.
Yeah. No, it's super straightforward. It's super simple. I'm sure that was something they put a lot of emphasis in. I guess even in that room, or maybe even the next room, you see like racing outfits that the characters wear.
Yeah. So, turns out Yoshi's been in a Yoshi suit this whole time.
Yeah, that was definitely a little interesting. That was an interesting look, but it's cool because it's almost like, lockers for like an athlete before going to play, right? Like they have these little like locker room style outfits set up right before you board the vehicle. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, overall, I'm very consistent with you so far as the queue. I don't know why, and people are going to think I'm weird for even bringing this up, but I got some sort of like supercharged vibe at some parts of the queue. I don't know why.
Because it's a workshop.
Like,
it's got that workshop vibe, but it's a fantastical cartoon workshop and not a realistic one.
Right. And that's not for the entirety of the queue, obviously. Like, obviously, there's things that have nothing to do with that. But I think just the area, like maybe even like with that van, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Something in there just felt reminiscent and similar. And I'm like, yep, the same person that built that queue built this one.
Now, to be fair, the queue is like one of the best parts of Fast and Furious.
Okay,
to be fair.
Yeah, that sure, that is true as well. But I felt I needed to say that because for whatever reason that was in my gut, and I don't know. It's a very weird thing that it is in my gut, but it was. So figured I'd say it. But before we actually dig into the ride, a quick overview of the land as a whole. Was there anything that you've seen come forward to this point, whether that be through POVs that have been dropped or even people just speaking, that you feel that we nailed, or you nailed more specifically?
I've been wanting to see the AR binoculars because that's something I talked about for years now, that I just like. It's a technology that I think is a long time coming to theme parks. And finally someone, I think on Instagram, put their camera up to the AR binoculars, and just for like 15 seconds I got to see what was in that view, and there's like bullet bills flying through the air over Mount Beanpole, and
cool.
At one point, like a fake door that's added on top of the mountain ahead across from the way opens up, and there's a character inside, and like I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, that's almost exactly what I animated in my fake rendition of what this would look like. Like I put a little Yoshi in a hole in the wall, and I was like, oh my god, that's practically the same thing. And because that's a technology that I really want to see that in person, and I want to see more. I hope people put videos up of that because I think it's really cool. But the interactive stuff in general, the power-up band stuff, I think while the Mario Kart ride itself and the way that it's like executed might have divided some people, I think that we can all agree the interactive stuff is done really well. It combines, like, there's a little hunt to earn stamps in the app for like 8-bit characters. And I think that's really cool for people that have been playing since the 80s, like myself. And at the same time, there's like new characters and big games. They have like the casino thing where you hit the 4 blocks, and if you match them up you get extra coins, and that's from a newer game, so that's fun, but also it's something that I pointed out might be on there. And also the boss battle with Bowser Jr., I feel like I kind of nailed that one. That's one where the patents lined up exactly with what they actually did.
Going back to your AR binoculars though, if you still have that footage, send it to me because I actually haven't seen it yet, because I am really intrigued now to see what that looks like. So please do send that through if you still have access to that, because I'm actually really excited to see what that looks like too, because I remember seeing your video and kind of like visualizing that in my head as well. So if it came to fruition that way, that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think all the interactive stuff, like they have a chance here to make some serious money on the power-up bands, because no matter what it costs, I have to do it. And it all looks really great.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things you can do multiple times. I saw someone write a review saying that they liked that the boss battle, you have to achieve 3 keys, collect 3 keys to be able to get there. So that way the line was never that long, because not everyone can just run to that, activity. So it helps disperse the crowds because they're out working to do the smaller tasks so they can go do the big finale.
I remember one of my initial concerns to you, something that I DM'd you personally, was I was wondering how that crowd control would kind of go, because I feel like the bands are going to be very popular, and if people are getting the bands and wearing the bands, they're going to be wanting to do all the interactive elements that come with it. It seems a little more enticing than wands. Like, I know wand spots sometimes back up in Wizarding World, but I just felt like there was potential for this stuff to back up even more, just because the interactive elements are very profound in the sense of like they're massive, and they're a big part of the world. And some of them take a decent amount of time. They're not done very, very quick. Sometimes it takes a few tries. So I was curious to see how that play out, but I think the way that they're going about it strategically, kind of dispersing it in that sense, is going to be very beneficial to them.
And the lines are kind of long for the meet and greets, because Toad is awesome and everyone wants to meet him. I'm
going with the theory that whoever was in Doraemon is officially in Toad now, because they have a lot of similar mannerisms going on.
You do love that character, so
I do love that.
And I
character.
do love Toad, so
Okay, so the ride. Let's just start from actually being in the load zone and loading onto the ride vehicle. We saw all this through Universal's initially released B-roll. Now seeing it on a POV, it looks exactly the same, so no surprises in the loading area. But okay, I'm just gonna put it at this. This ride is very, 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 very heavily reliant on augmented reality. That is something that Alicia told us from the get-go. But at one point, we were actually questioning whether it was going to make the ride. And now that we've seen the ride come to fruition, this is my opinion, I feel like this ride is a completely different experience without it. And I'm sure you agree with that, Alicia. But let's say this technology failed them and they found out a year or two ago that we just can't do this. How would this have been done, do you think?
I think, well, at least on their end, they were planning on doing the augmented reality, even if they couldn't do it in time. Like I think they were prepared to open this thing and just unveil it as a part 2, like a 2.0, and like say like enjoy the sets and enjoy the immersiveness, and then now enjoy the interactivity and the characters. Like I feel like they were willing. They put 6 years into this. They patented tons of new technology for augmented reality, whether it be the way that it synchronizes throughout the ride, whether it be the way it tracks your eye movement so that things line up properly, not based on the gyroscope in the headset, but based on where you're actually looking. Like they patented a ton of stuff, which tells me that they've been working on this. Like they even patented a way to clean and sanitize the augmented reality. Like they knew this was going to be a part of the attraction. It was really just a rumor that they might not make it in time. And with the delay because of the pandemic from last summer to early this year, they actually had a little bit more time to fine tune some things. And what's great is they even have a patent that allows them to fine-tune the software that runs the augmented reality on a car-by-car basis. So if they want to upgrade the attraction, they can actually do it without closing down. So like overnight or as a couple days pass, you can actually see improvements made. And they will be making improvements as they develop this ride for the future locations like Hollywood and Orlando. I think that those will come online probably with some minor tweaks as the technology gets better, as processing power gets better, or just as they add more, because they have more time to just improve it. And I do have some comments I'll make some later that I think would improve the ride and the augmented reality. But even just the fact that it's incredibly easy to sit down with the already sized visor on your head, the Mario hat, and just click it in with magnets, like which they patented their own version of that. Like everyone I've talked to that has actually been on the ride says, oh, well, that's not a problem. That's pretty intuitive. You just sit down and boom, click right in. So something that, with VR, like the VR coasters or whatever, it was a huge holdup at the line. And like I went on the Kraken VR at SeaWorld, and it made the wait times balloon up 10 times because it took so long to focus and to put it on and to size it to your head. And with this, you do all the sizing in that ready room with the Me video, 10 minutes earlier. So you're already wearing the Mario hat when you sit into the car and just go click. And so they've worked out a lot. And this ride is very reliant on it. But the good news is it also has a bunch of really cool physical sets and things.
I'm glad you brought up the fact of, I guess, upgrading the AR. And that's something that I'll want to delve further into as we go through this episode. But I do want to touch on the sets now that we're on it. I think this is a good question, assuming for you and even for people listening. I think when we hear about attractions, right? And then when you and I come on and we start talking and we put little details out about these are the tracks you can expect, these are the things to expect inside, we begin to create the attraction almost in our head. We try to visualize what this scene could look like in a Universal attraction, how this road might look, how, we tend to visualize it. And I think once we see it, it's usually different than what we visualized in our head. That definitely stood true for me. But my question for you is did that happen for you? Did it actually line up really, really well with what you were thinking? Or what were the differences and similarities there?
The best example I can give, because the reality is a person's imagination is more powerful than reality. And if you read a book and then you go see the movie 2 years later, everyone always walks out going, the book was better. Was the book better, or was your imagination while reading the book better? Because maybe you are picturing something in your head, and then when the director and the producers cast different people who don't look like your brain image, you're mad.
Yep.
Or they tweak little things, and it's like, well, that's not what I had in my head. That's why like fan theories about movies always come out for years.
Such a good analogy.
And then fan theories are like, we get so attached to the idea and like, oh man, that would be great. And then next thing you know, Baby Yoda's name is Grogu and the internet explodes. And you're like, that's not what I pictured. So, but yes, no, as far as the ride sequences, there were some differences, some good, some bad.
Yeah.
I thought Twisted Mansion was so much cooler than I was imagining. They did
Same.
that
I'm with you on
wobbly
that.
hallway in such a cool way that like, even without the augmented reality, I'm sitting here going, is that a screen or is that a real wobbly hallway? That is so good. It matches so perfect. And then other things I'm like, oh, well, that ended up being a little more cramped than I was imagining. And this, again, based on a POV, I haven't actually been on the ride, so maybe it feels more open. But like some of the earlier scenes, like with the chain chomp and the piranha plants, that feels a little condensed compared to what I was imagining. But also, it's more well lit and cartoony than I was imagining. Like I was imagining it darker. I don't know why. Maybe because you think about dark rides and you think dark, or maybe I'm just so stuck on Forbidden Journey where everything is very dark. This is very bright and cheerful, and it feels very much like a family kids ride in that sense. And the color just makes me kind of happy. Like it pops. So seeing all the lighting and all, like how bright and vibrant everything looks is not exactly how I imagined it, but that's a good thing.
I feel like that cloud scene, especially for me, and you can tell me if this holds true for you, is kind of like the scene that really set that tone for me. Feels almost like something that you would potentially see in zoos, or even like a classic Disney attraction, right?
Yeah, it feels very Disney in that scene. And that's even watching it without the augmented reality on top. It's just a pretty cute and colorful scene. But like getting into the augmented reality though, because that's one of my favorite moments, is that there's like clouds with faces and they're blowing at you. And in the augmented reality, there's like wavy lines like coming at you, like little tornadoes coming at you. And the ride vehicle spins to the direction that they're blowing you.
So cool.
And I think there's fans. You can hear something blowing. So I'm guessing there's fans blowing air. So imagine you're feeling them blowing air on you, like they're actually blowing it. You see the little tornadoes coming out of their mouth, and then your car spins, and then the other one blows you the other direction. And without the augmented reality, it's hard to gauge what's happening. Like, wait, why are we spinning? But then it makes more sense if you could actually feel the wind and if you could actually see the marks in front of your face. So there's little moments where the augmented reality and the special effects all work together with the background to make things happen. Like, you don't hit a bullet bill in front of you, it's going to hit you and you spin. And if you're not watching the augmented reality, you have no idea, like, why am I spinning now? Or like, oh, the Twisted Mansion scene fills up with water. To segue between the underwater scene and Twisted Mansion, like that is all in augmented reality. And it's kind of mind-blowing that they took it that far. And took something that, if you're just watching the POV without the headset, you're like, why are we stopped?
Yeah.
I think you mentioned like it looks like the ride broke down.
It does. The first time I watched it without AR, I thought it was like a stall. I thought there was something going on in the attraction. It was just seemed like a unique moment of where it was kind of paused. But yeah, it's totally because there's something happening in AR that pertains to the moment.
and it's like moving you, or it's holding you backwards. So you're looking at the underwater scene, and then it fills up with water, and then it twists you around and reveals that you're now in Twisted Mansion, rather than just going like from one scene to the next. So it's a really neat way to do a transition. It's entirely new. This type of ride doesn't exist until now. So I'm like so focused on the new technologies and the way that they're using old technologies with them that I didn't even stop to think that it's moving slow. I'm segueing into our argument.
Yeah.
Because like I'm watching this and I'm like so blown away by the way that they've actually incorporated everything together, and like a piranha plant that's physically there and robotic, like moves around and opens his mouth, and a CG fireball comes out in AR, and I'm like, how are they doing this? This is so perfect. And then I go online and everyone's like, it's too slow.
Yeah. Again, hopefully it's just a POV thing, and the second people put on these, goggles and see it actually happening in front of them, the game changes. And I want to reiterate that too, because you just mentioned that this is an attraction that neither you or myself have been on. So we're speaking solely from this POV right now. And I think honestly, where you're coming from, where you're saying this attraction is pretty darn cool as it is, to get that from a POV doesn't always happen with a dark ride. Like, we don't even get that far. Mm-hmm. Normally we get to like what either A, what's going on, or B, what's happening here. And yeah, we're still getting that here, but very more often than not, when we watch a dark ride, especially one that we haven't been on, we don't leave it thinking that was great. So if you are able to glean that even a little bit from this, I think that might be a really good sign.
Yeah, well, I remember when Forbidden Journey first opened, and I went on it opening week before watching a POV, but people that only saw YouTube videos thought it was entirely screen-based because it was so dark for the dark ride scenes that they didn't show up really, so it just looked like darkness, and then the screens show up like crystal clear. This was before we had probably better low light cameras like we do now. And so most of the comments were like, great, another screen ride. Even Mario Kart a week ago, only the last minute showed up online. That someone posted on Instagram and then got reposted to YouTube. And all of the comments were, great, another screen ride. And then now we get actual footage and everyone's like, oh, great, a slow moving dark ride. Like, what do you want, people? Make up your mind.
Hey, that first one, though, was so disorienting because I thought it was like a Spider-Man Transformers elevator type sitting in front of a dome screen kind of scene, and it wasn't that at all.
It's actually projection mapping and fiber optics, and like very little of it, what we're seeing in the background was AR, and everyone thought the whole thing was fake. And I'm like, no, the ground is projection mapped, which, by the way, I think that's the best thing on this ride is the Rainbow Road projected on the ground.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Fantastic. That is one of the coolest physical effects that I've seen in a long time. I think it's amazing. I think it's a fan favorite, obviously, Rainbow Road. So the fact that they even went that far to actually make the real physical road do that was amazing. But sets, I mean, before we really get off topic here and start getting into the nitty gritty, you mentioned Twisted. Is that your favorite set built? Or did you have a different set build that you're like, that was the one?
There's this moment between the end of the underwater scene that transitions to Twisted. Because it's like Dolphin Shoals and then it's the underwater before Twisted Mansion. Like it's part of that set.
Yeah.
That, I guess if you include that underwater with the Twisted, yes, that's my favorite section. I did want to talk about this and no one's talking about. I think there's 2 layers on the screens. Like when there is actually a physical screen that is being projected on, I almost have to wonder, is this like a rear projected screen in the back and then a front projection map screen in the front? Because there is 2 layers to some of these sequences. Like there's the fish bones where it's like a screen or whatever in the front and then that disappears and then there's stuff behind it. And with the AR, it's like all bets are off. I can't tell what's going on. But when you watch it without the AR, I still kind of can't tell what's going on. There's like that big underwater creature at the end of Dolphin Shoals, like coming out of the screen, and it looks 3D in a POV video on my YouTube without the use of 3D glasses or AR. And I'm like, how is this happening? And I think it's projected twice, like on a background and a foreground. And there's bubbles like going by in the foreground, almost like Navi River Journey, where there's multiple layers of screens. But this one is overlapping layers of screens, if that makes sense. And that's just a guess. I am actually not sure how it works.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I thought that was just me. Before I even get into what I'm going to say, Universal did an incredible job with depth. Depth is really, really good on this attraction. But the first thing that I noticed was I put on the POV without AR, and from the start line, the little person that like comes out to, I don't know the name, but to do like the red, yellow, green, it seemed like it was way in front of like the back part. And I said, how is this happening? Isn't this just one screen?
Right.
So I don't know what was going on there, but they've done a lot of cool things with depth.
I think that this is the breakout star that people haven't realized is there. Multi-layered screens that we have. Like everyone said, Runaway Railway. The designers are like, this is 2.5D, and I'm like, no, I think Universal cracked 2.5D. This is 2.5D. They have a layer of screen in front of the screen, and I can't tell. It's almost like perfectly meshing the AR style, where it's almost like semi-transparent, and that could be from the POV, but like it's not full opaqueness. And now they're projecting on screens that also have that same feeling. So it meshes so perfectly well that when characters jump, and characters do jump from AR to the screen world. Even shells, if you're firing a shell at like Bowser while he's projected on a screen, your shells go from your AR to the screen projection. So they're actually interacting with the ride vehicles and the screens in real time.
If I had to say to you, this is just a fun question. This ride, Mario Kart, is this ride meets blank. How would you answer that?
Men in Black meets Toy Story Mania meets I want a third one. Let's see. What's something that's like really good sets wise? I mean, Men in Black is, but like Runaway Railway.
Men in Black is not a bad choice set-wise at all.
I think Runaway.
Wow, I didn't even get to a third because I just stopped. But my first two was Men in Black meets Runaway Railway.
Because, like, I think the Toy Story Mania is a different kind of interactivity that throwing the shells reminds me of. Like, throwing shells over and over again and hitting a button is a little different than holding down the laser pointer gun. So, to me, this is more like Toy Story Mania in the interactivity sense.
100%. 100%. That's why I left the last one empty, too, because this one seems interactive in a way that almost we've never seen before, so I didn't know how to answer that.
But yeah, instead of pulling a cord, you're pressing a button. And by the way, getting back to the argument on the fast versus slow, I've heard the argument, well, the commercials shouldn't show it looking so fast. You do realize the commercials also show people materializing shells in their hands and throwing them over their head and not wearing goggles, right? Like,
that's not happening? Are you telling me that's not going on?
No, you're pressing a little button on in front of you. Beep, 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 beep. So not everything in a commercial is going to be realistic.
So this ride, up until this point, before we even... actually, I will ask you this question later. So gist of this is you do like this attraction.
So far, I love what I see. I think that I'm so excited for Universal to have a slow-moving dark ride in general, but I'm also so excited every time something new happens in the theme park realm, because it opens up the door for new things to happen in other attractions. Whether it be like Rise of the Resistance using multiple ride systems together to finally take this trackless ride system that on its own, without the tilting and yaw and whatever, is kind of dull, but then combining it with the ability to do like a simulator portion and a drop portion. Like all of that, and then doing like the almost LARPing style pre-shows where you get to go on a shuttle and they're talking directly to you and you're captured. All that together made a new kind of attraction, and I'm excited about it. Even if you don't like Star Wars, that's a pretty cool milestone. And this is like that too, where AR, and especially done this way, is so new that just like a Koopa arm attraction for the first time in Forbidden Journey, I see possibilities. Just like Spider-Man in the late 90s and going on it and going, I've never been in a 3D movie that moves before. I see the possibilities. And we've gotten so many new types of attractions after these big milestones. So AR and even three-dimensional screens the way they're doing is such a big thing for me to see like the birth of now. And also, I know everyone is saying it, but it's true. It's not going to be perfect to capture on a POV video. the wobbling, the shaking of the characters in AR is from holding it with your hand. You'd have to strap that phone to the headset to get it to perfectly match. So sometimes, characters are going to be jittery or flying around. And so
Right.
I really want to see it in person, because the first POV we saw actually did kind of a good job at lining it up properly. I think the person put it right over their eyeball. So
Yeah.
it looked like the characters were matching up with the road pretty well, but also it was an easier time because it's at the end where there's not set pieces to compare it to. But I think that this is going to be a huge game changer. I think our first episode we called this ride a game changer.
Yep.
And now actually seeing it exist is super exciting for me.
It has done this to me, even though I'll get into it, my arguments to this attraction. Even seeing it though, and seeing how some of the augmented reality was pulled off, going to a ride as good of Rise the Resistance that stands alone without any kind of 3D or anything like that, just the physical sets and what's going on is amazing. I would have loved to see that on Rise and actually have lasers fly over my head and stuff, and see things being killed and interacted with in AR, whether that be things falling off shelves, kind of like they've done on this ride, with the painting that we saw in Twisted that falls.
Oh my God. Yeah, I missed that. You pointed that
Yeah.
out. There's a part where a painting falls off the wall and then puts itself back up there, and the AR blocks out real life to cover it up with the fake
Yeah.
painting, and it's so seamless.
It's so ridiculous, and it creates so many cool opportunities to pull off effects that are unique to movies, whether that be I don't know, in Harry Potter, when you cast a spell, there's all this like crazy stuff that comes out of the wand,
Right.
Or even a laser shooter like in Star Wars, right? Like if to actually have a laser fly over your head, it is now possible with AR. So I think the fact that it's even putting it in my head, oh man, what if this attraction had this? What if this attraction had that?
the possibilities. Yeah,
There's something that speaks to that, because there is an enhancement possibility. And the cool thing about it too is it's not out of play for these parks if they really love the technology and it just gets insane to say, okay, we're going to come back to this ride and we're going to make it better by throwing on these glasses. Like, that's not off the table right now.
And I something too that we probably can't, we don't notice, and we need to talk to people that actually been on the ride. These AR goggles, the visor, use two eyes. It's stereoscopic. So there's a 3D element to this that we're not even thinking about, because it was filmed through a left eye and there's two eyes. So if you've ever looked through a Viewmaster and it's got two different eyes and it makes it look like three-dimensional plane, these characters aren't just on top of reality. They're kind of meshed into reality. Now here's my biggest complaint with the AR so far. And I'm hoping it's something that they address in the next 2 to 3 years, because it's something that's being worked on right now in the technology in general, but it takes more processing power. And that is occlusion. That's the big technical term. I think that's what is used in the industry for if there's a person in the front row and you're in the back row and their head is blocking what should be something in front of them, it should be matted out. There's a movie term for you, but if you see Yoshi zoom in front of someone's head, their head should block the bottom half of Yoshi. Otherwise, it looks like they're just on top of reality. And it looked to me, from what I saw, that they weren't using occlusion to erase people or to erase characters when they go in front of people. So, but like I said, they have the ability to upgrade the software as time goes on. So that's something I'd like to see. But also, it's something that might not be a real issue. It might not be an issue for me because I'm kind of tall and I'll sit up as straight as I can in the back row, but it might be an issue for children who, even with the stadium seating, might still be looking at someone back of the head. And it might also not be an issue because the way the POV is filmed with a camera in front of a goggles and not at eye line, because of that, you could see the edge of the goggles, and it looks like characters are appearing out of nowhere. But if the goggles are the right distance from your face, that shouldn't be an issue. So maybe the occlusion issue isn't an issue either. I'm not sure yet.
I mean, if we want to get into the really nitty gritty from a gaming standpoint too, I hearken AR at this point kind of like at the N64 stage. It's becoming good and it's fun. But the Xbox and the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One, PS2, PS3, and all that stuff is on the way. And hopefully that's the same progression that this is going to see, and it's going to be probably a lot quicker than we saw with those consoles over the years. But just like you were saying, what's the term? Inclusion?
Occlusion.
Occlusion?
Occlusion.
Occlusion, yeah. So they figure out occlusion So that's a game changer in itself. And if they figure out field of view to where, because I think right now it's kind of a relatively small square. And if you really want to get hard on it and look off to your left, look off to your right really quick, you can probably see outside of it. And
if you looked with your eyeballs.
Exactly.
But if you turn your whole head to the side, which the POVs don't do, you will see the action continue where you turn your head.
Absolutely.
So you'll see a character drive up beside you if you turned your head to the right or the left. And these are types of things that I hope we see later in other POVs, or at least talk to people that have been on the ride and ask them, hey, did you turn your head to the left? I have to know. Did you see Yoshi zoom up behind you? You know? So like... at least there's not frame dropping and slow motion happening.
Yeah.
Like at least the processing power is keeping up with it, because there is a lot going on. So speaking in video game terms, at least they're handling it in like smooth motion, real time. Like it doesn't have a frames per second problem like an early console does, because that would drive me insane.
Look, we don't have any at this point in time AR in the form of glasses that's publicly mass sold, and it's like hitting the general market. Like we have specialty and more expensive ones, but we don't really have ones that are doing it and showing us what's possible. So the fact that we're even seeing that on attraction is really exciting, really fun. And like we've talked about in previous episodes, it probably helps that there's this environment that they know is the same every single time, and that's how they can create the AR around it. So I'm going to dive into that in my rebuttal, because that's officially where I want to go now, is for everyone that's listening and they're like, why isn't anybody dogging this attraction yet? One, that's because Alicia gets paid by Universal to say nice things. So that's the first one.
I love that. By the way, I love that because it's so far from the truth that I'm literally, to borrow a phrase from Jurassic Park, I am a pebble in their shoe, and that they probably wish they could get out.
Yeah, that's not true, guys. I saw that mentioned, but that's definitely not true. Alicia's very, very fair and very real about what she's saying. But I will play that other role if you guys want that played, because it's how I feel truthfully. And if creative is listening, I think you guys did a great job, but I have some things to say. So, I knew this is what we were getting ourselves into as far as the attraction, but I was still hoping for a little speed. Why is there no speed on a ride based around a racing IP? I feel like I've been here before. I feel like I've heard this same story, and this is deja vu. So, for people that are upset about racing IPs that don't end up being a racing type attraction, yeah, you have a little reason to feel jaded, because this is number 2. So that's the first problem I had. The second problem I had was that it seems like there's a lot of moments where the cars or the other racers are just kind of, they're almost stalling out, and they're just kind of hanging there. And it almost seems like it's for just, storyline. It doesn't seem like we're actually racing. It seems like they're looking back at you. They're like, hey, how's it going? Just kind of like they're on idle or something.
It's a little, let's say, cluttery.
Yeah.
They're just all like traffic jammed in front of you sometimes.
Yeah, if you've played Mario Kart, it's a very constant state of flow. Everyone is always pretty much moving forward, unless you're hitting a banana or being hit by a shell or spinning out for some other reason. There's not a lot of like hang back, talk to the person, and that's, I guess, the main character of this attraction, and continue to move on. Like, that's not how Mario Kart really works.
But this isn't Mario Kart, Dustin. This is Mario Kart Koopa's challenge, and we are on Team Mario, and we are working together to defeat bad guys.
Yeah, but that is not what I have played all my life and was hoping this attraction would be.
I made a comment earlier, and I didn't mean it to sound as mean as I did, but it's not Mario Kart 8 The Ride, okay?
That's true.
It's like, just like Forbidden Journey isn't recreating any specific moment from Harry Potter. It's more of just like, look at all these cool places we can show you.
That's true.
That's kind of what this is.
And I guess I could be like, when in Harry Potter did they fly around on a bench?
Explain it in the queue. These benches have been around for 20 years.
So I see your point there. That is something that I could hammer home, but I don't know. I feel like the AR on this is responsible for about 70 to 80% of the experience, and I think I was honestly hoping it would be responsible for about 30 to 40% of the experience. I wanted it to be a little more physical. I wanted it to be, I don't know. And again, I think this comes back to the point of what you said, how our imaginations can kind of run away with us. We can start imagining and when we do that, let's be real. We imagine our perfect attraction for that IP. Like, and that's different for everyone. Everyone has their own unique perspective on what the perfect attraction for that IP
I think
is.
all of our imaginations, if we actually did them in physical space in real life, would be the size of the entire theme park.
Yeah.
Like in reality, it's got to go fast like Radiator Springs.
Yeah.
It's got to have the full courses. It's got to have animatronics drive up beside you.
Exactly.
And it's got to have like, and the more you think about it, you're more like, oh wait, that's the whole size of Universal Studios Japan. It would be a big building. Because, there's a reason Radiator Springs Racers only has the race for a portion of it and goes
Right.
outside, like test track. There's not enough space to do a whole fast ride like that. But
I've thought about that too. The second you go fast too, you're taking up a lot of space. So that also means a lot of space to be themed and filled. And if we think about historically what's been done in moments like that, test track's just outside. Right. Radiator Springs is, again, that's when it goes outside. Something like The Mummy, it's dark.
Right, and it's and something like Gringotts, when it has a couple moments that are like fast, everyone gets off it going, that's it. It was so short, and yet that building is bigger than like any other building. Like it to have any of those fast moments takes up so much space that you end up thinking it's a short ride. So get off of a fast ride, it's only 90 seconds. Ride the Mario Kart ride, almost 5 minutes long. What would you rather have?
That's true.
I do agree with your points, though. What would make a good Mario Kart attraction, or what people are expecting. I think as far as the AR being 70 instead of 30, I think some really good moments that I almost wish they focused on more and let us race against the other car instead of racing against all these characters cluttered up in front of us, Roger Rabbit style. I like the moment where two of the Koopalings or whatever are on top of the airship. It's a physical airship, the propeller's spinning, and they're firing bullet bills at you. And the bullet bills you shoot at are AR, and the Koopalings are AR, but they're not driving in front of you, and they're way above people's heads, so you don't have to worry about occlusion. And they match and line up perfectly with the airship, and that is more what I was expecting for the ride as far as AR goes, where you're you're defeating a bad guy that's trying to stop you, and if you get hit by the bullet bill, you spin out. That's more of what I expected.
Same.
And I also expected, instead of just shells, that maybe you could collect other items, which would, make it a little bit more, mix it up a little bit. And you could use the other items against the other car, kind of like in Men in Black where you shoot the other car. Things like that might have made it more of a racing ride. But because we're on Team Mario and they have a different narrative, I see where they went with it. So those are my complaints too. I'm right with you there. That's not what I imagined the ride was going to be like. And I think there are a little bit too many characters clustered right in front of you.
Yeah. I don't know too, because I think, as I just mentioned, in those moments where there are long spurts of speed, I think there is an issue of having to theme either a large area or coming up with some groundbreaking technology where like the set moves with you. I don't know, right? There's a lot of possibilities for how you approach that. But one thing that really chaps me is that if they wanted to go this route where we're kind of slow and maybe we're even like kind of like accomplishing tasks slowly, and then all of a sudden we reach a point in the ride, we're like, okay, we got to take off now. Now we got to win. That could have been Rainbow Road.
I mean, isn't it already? That is the fastest, like I'm using air quotes, fastest part of the ride. Like the way the projection mapped ground is moving at you, you do. But I mean,
a launch. I want to launch.
Oh, you want to launch?
Yes. Like I want to feel that like real, like, yes, this is a Mario Kart launch on Rainbow Road. That would be incredible.
I think imagine it with wind. Like, imagine that sequence where and that's a good moment where the characters are paragliding around you and it does feel like you're actually in a race. That's a moment where they're not all like just hanging out in front of you. They're actually passing in front of you or you're passing them. That feels like more like a Mario Kart moment to me. And it incorporates projection mapping and the AR in a way like the AR has those like fast anime lines coming at you and there's like stars in the distance and like all three of those layers mix together really well. And if you imagine there's wind, I imagine there has to be, because like every ride at Universal has wind and water. It probably feels fast for that motion. And that's kind of why they did it as the finale. It's like, all right, let's open this thing up. And it's like the kid version of Test Track's ending or Radiator Springs even. Like it's like a more really family-friendly moment. And I would probably say that anytime Universal or Dynamic Attractions or whoever was designing this ride went to Nintendo and said, what about this? I bet you anything Nintendo said, we need to tone it down for the children. Because in interviews, Shigeru Miyamoto says that he wanted anyone to be able to enjoy this, regardless of age and regardless of gaming level. And I think that why is it not a race against the other car? Why is it not actually fast? I bet you anything it's because Nintendo didn't want it to be.
If that's true, creative, I'm sorry, and I will back off. And I'll never know the real answer to that. But yeah, it's interesting, like you're saying, because like we did see those old like ride system concepts, and those seem to be very quick and very insane. And I don't know. Have you heard rumors or even any general like words that are coming out on how Nintendo has perceived this to this point? Like what they've actually seen complete?
I mean, if you look at the Nintendo Direct with Miyamoto, he seems pretty proud of it. He says we've been working 6 years on this. Like there's a reason. I think he's very proud of it, and I think he wants. I mean, there's Pikmin all over the land. You know he's got his hands all over this. And by the way, there's a lot more Pikmin than I was expecting. They're even in the queues. It's so cute. There's one where they're carrying a giant coin. What's giant for them? And it's so cute. No, like I think, and he even said in interviews, and you can pull up the old interview from 4 years ago. He always envisioned this land for all ages. So when Donkey Kong Coaster comes out, and that's something that's true about these franchises in general. Yoshi tends to lend itself well to younger players, younger gamers. And Donkey Kong lends itself well to older kids. And Mario Kart is kind of family for everyone. The youngest in your family and the oldest in your family like to play Mario Kart together. It's challenging, but it's also easily accessible because of its cartoony graphics. Like it's not a hard Formula One racing game, where it actually is fast and you can't pay attention to it. But it also isn't so young that, it skews somewhere in the middle. And I think that's how the rides are. The Yoshi ride is for little kids. The Donkey Kong ride is going to be for older kids. And the Mario Kart's supposed to be for everyone. And I think that every decision you're seeing was intentional.
In some parallel universe, that dynamic attractions one was built.
I think there's a theme park in China that's building one.
Oh yeah,
that lends itself more well to an outdoor ride.
It does.
You're not going to see an incredibly well themed, super fleshed out interactive experience on a roller coaster.
Sure.
It is a roller coaster. It just has a false road underneath it.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you though, would make the best F-Zero coaster because it would look like you're hovering above the road.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Yeah,
and you can go upside down.
Oh, I like that a lot. That'd be cool too. All right, so let's dive into some questions because I know we're going long, but this episode deserved it, and I think it deserved our thoughts. Before we dive into questions, are there any final thoughts you had or things you want to say? Because I feel like honestly, I think I've made my point.
I'm excited for a good old school. And that's what I said in my video years ago about, at the very end of it, I said, this is going to be, Mario Kart is going to be a classic style dark ride with a technological twist. And that's exactly what we got.
It is.
So I'm happy.
Questions. First one is from Joe Sanchez, and we went over this briefly in the video, but you can just give your final thoughts on it. Does the Mario Kart ride have wind effects to make it feel like you're going faster than you are?
I don't know about the faster part. I'm hoping that Rainbow Road scene does. If anyone's been on the ride, leave a comment. Does Rainbow Road have wind? But I know the cloud scene does.
I hope it just blows us down like Gringotts too. Like that'd be great.
Gringotts, that first drop on Gringotts really gets people, and it's like you're barely moving.
Next,
the Mummy has fans. Did you know that?
I feel like I did, but I always forget it just because I feel like that ride's fast in itself. But yeah, I feel like that is something I knew, but I always forget about.
Yeah, you gotta trick people in the dark.
And that's God, I'm gonna go on, but that just, Rainbow Road was never mind. Because I think about the effects like on Mummy and like even something like Rock and Roller Coaster. Like you could have done so many like crazy rainbow type. I'm gonna move on. Never mind. What ride system? This is from TBNR_Jose, I believe. What ride system do you personally think Mario Kart should have used? I guess that's even if you think it should have been a different one.
I like what they used. I don't think. I now see. I've been covering this for so many years. It's hard for me to imagine it any other way. I still think Fast and Furious should have been Radiator Springs Racers, and it's an 8-second race that goes off course, and then you save the day, and there's a giant bank vault being pulled by a car. Like, I want a giant Fast and Furious, a test track type ride with a story. This one, I want it to be a low-key, slow-moving Men in Black ride that I can take it all in, so I'm happy.
For me, I honestly don't know because I don't know if the ride system truly exists that I would have even wanted as far as like something we've seen before, like in a prominent park. But if I had to give it to something that is out there and very well known, I would probably go, test track Radiator Springs type. Yeah. When is Nintendo World coming to U.S. parks from Ethan Dupree?
Some people believe Hollywood would open this year if Hollywood was open this year. I think that
Right.
no matter what happens, we're looking at summer 2022 for Hollywood's Super Nintendo World.
Yep.
As long as the park is open.
I'm with you on that. I'm going mid to late spring, going into the summer of next year. And you even want to tackle Florida or just well, that's a sore subject.
I'm going to put it out there. Let's put it in the recording.
Okay.
2025 at Epic Universe. That's my guess.
Wow. Okay. Kind of on the same subject. This is from Brandon. I know this isn't Nintendo World related, but with the recent closure of Barney, is this a sign of anything, including potentially Pokemon Land, or is it just a coincidence?
It's as much a sign of anything as Sinbad closing at Islands of Adventure is a sign of anything, or the Toon Lagoon show closing 20 some odd years ago is a sign of anything. It's a sign that Universal would rather have a thing empty than pay to have it open.
That's a shame, but yeah, that happens. Storybook Amusement on YouTube has asked us, and this is interesting because I keep getting this question. I've got this question from a few different people now. What elements in the land and attractions do you think may get tweaked and improved in the US version? And before you even start, I know we've talked about food obviously being different, so that's really easy. But people seem to think that something in the attraction is going to get tweaked. I don't see that possible at all, but do you?
I don't see the plans for the overall area changing. They certainly weren't any different when they were planning on building it in Kid Zone. I think what we might see is improvements.
The layout in Hollywood is different.
Well, the layout for the land is different, but I think they're still going to have most of the same interactive stuff because that's these are things that have been gamified that designers have worked really hard to make sure can work for multiple types of people. And like, no matter your gaming level, whether it be just touching the musical notes or playing an actual activity, it needs to be something that's been fully tested. So I don't think we're going to get anything like that isn't already over in Japan, but I do hope and think, as I said earlier, that they work on the actual software for the Mario Kart attraction and improve upon it, not just for Japan, but by the time it opens in Hollywood and Orlando, that these tweaks have been made and installed before they even open ours.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, especially for our last question, because I forgot to touch on it. The fact that this ride has the potential to be upgraded, just as, consoles change every few years and just graphics improve. I think it's really exciting that this ride isn't even potentially in its final form.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and if anyone's questioning whether or not they would do something like that, just think about how Forbidden Journey recently upgraded to 4K. Spider-Man to upgrade to 4K was completely and from scratch redone. They re-rendered and reanimated all the characters. They changed haircuts on these characters. Like, they redid it.
They did.
They spaced out dialogue to add 15 seconds to each scene. Like, so it has more breathing room. So if they can do that, they even just recently updated the levitation windows to better projections because those were still old school. They were just lighting effects, and now they're actual projections. Yeah, you could see a father throwing his baby in the air in one of the windows. Like, it's ridiculous. It's still a silhouette, but like, why not? We're upgrading it. We might as well. And the Mummy just re-rendered their graphics for the turntable and the sand scene and the bugs. So yeah, these types of upgrades, it's just like upgrading the projectors to 4K over the last 10 years. And now they have this software that they can upgrade. They can reprogram and change it. They could have holiday overlays like Mission Breakout does. This type of technology can change the gameplay. You can add new ways to play. And the way that it works, you actually tap your power-up band to the center steering wheel to record your scores. So it's possible they might even introduce new ways to level up or change the way that you fire your weapon. I don't know. The sky's the limit on this AR technology because it's completely upgradable.
I like that you brought that up too, because we didn't dive into the actual nitty gritty of specifics and how things are working. So maybe we can touch on that in a future episode. But I love that we did our quick rundown, our quick thoughts. I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of things to say, siding on both Team Alicia and Team Dustin at this point. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to go, and I'm excited to see the general reception in the comments.
Yes, the future is now. we have AR.
All right, guys, I think that's going to wrap up today's episode. If you guys want to catch more of Alicia Stella, she has the Theme Park Stop on YouTube. She has the Park Stop podcast as well, and she has Alicia Stella on Twitter. If you guys are looking for more from the Theme Park Shark, you can find our podcast on Apple and Spotify. We are at themeparkshark.com, and of course, the Theme Park Shark on YouTube. But all right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's episode of Shark Stop. As always, I appreciate you guys being here and for listening and or watching. Take care, have a great day, and we'll see you guys in the next one.